Level 1. The accident. You're 26 years old and you've spent the last 4 years working the night shift at a warehouse outside the city. You send half of every paycheck to your mother, who never fully recovered after your father left. Your sister Mia is the only person who still makes you laugh on the hard nights. One evening, walking her home from the bus stop, a man she used to date follows you both into the parking lot, shouting, refusing to back off. He shoves her, hard, and something in you snaps. You push him away, just once, just to get him off her. He stumbles backward, hits his head on the concrete curb and doesn't get back up. For a long moment, the whole street goes silent. You kneel beside him, hands shaking, telling yourself this isn't happening. Somewhere in your head, a voice says, "Call for help." A louder voice says, "Nobody will believe it was an accident." You look at your sister's terrified face, and you make the worst decision of your life. You run. In the distance, you hear the first siren, still faint, still far away. Mia grabs your sleeve, pulling you toward the shadows between two buildings. Your legs move before your brain catches up, carrying you away from the only life you've ever known. You don't look back at him lying there. You don't look back at the apartment you'll never sleep in again. By the time the siren gets close, you're 3 blocks away, breathing hard, heart pounding, already someone the police are looking for. Mia keeps looking back over her shoulder, tears streaking her face, whispering that this can't really be happening. You tell her to go home, to say nothing, to act like she was never there at all. She grabs your arm one last time, begging you to just call the police and explain, and for 1 second you almost listen. Then headlights sweep across the alley wall, and instinct wins over reason. You kiss the top of her head, tell her you love her, and disappear down a side street alone. Level 2. The runner. The first night you sleep sitting up in your car, 3 towns away, doors locked, engine off. You've turned off your phone, terrified they can track it, though you're not entirely sure how any of this works. Every headlight that slows down near you feels like it's about to stop. By morning, you buy a cheap prepaid phone with cash, the kind you've only ever seen in movies. You call your mother from a gas station payphone, and she doesn't recognize the shaking in your own voice. You tell her you're fine, that you just need space, and you hate how easily the lie comes out. On the local news that night, playing silently above a diner counter, you see your own face for the first time. The headline calls it a suspicious death, an active manhunt, a person of interest still at large. You sit very still, staring at your coffee, praying no one else in the room looks up. That night, and every night after, you learn to sleep with one eye open. You cut your hair short in a gas station bathroom mirror, watching pieces of your old life fall into the sink. You start avoiding anywhere with a camera pointed at the door, ducking your head out of habit now. Cash only, always cash, because cards leave a trail you don't fully understand but fear anyway. You drive without any real destination, just further, just away, state lines blurring together outside the window. At a rest stop past midnight, you finally let yourself cry, quietly, so the trucker 2 spaces over won't hear. You think about turning around more than once, and every time, fear wins the argument in your head. Level 3. The alias. Weeks turn into a month, and the version of you that existed before starts to feel like someone else's memory. You start going by a different first name in the small logging town where you've landed, telling anyone who asks that you're just passing through for work. A contractor pays you in cash for framing houses, no questions asked, which is exactly what you needed and exactly what worries you. You rent a room above a laundromat, paying week to week, never signing anything with your real name. At night, you lie awake running the numbers. How long the cash will last. How long a town this small will stay unfamiliar with your face. You stop checking the news obsessively, not because the fear is gone, but because you can't survive checking it every hour. Slowly, carefully, you build a life that isn't really a life, more like a held breath stretched over months. You tell yourself it's temporary, that eventually things will calm down, that eventually you'll figure out what to do next. Some mornings you almost believe it. You watch the other men on the crew go home to families every evening, and something in your chest tightens each time. You start flinching at the sound of any engine that idles too long outside your window. A police cruiser passing slowly through town sends your pulse into your throat for a full minute after it's gone. You've become someone who studies exits in every room you enter, a habit you didn't have 3 months ago. This is the part no one warns you about, how exhausting it is to be afraid of everything, all the time. You start keeping a small bag packed by the door, just in case you need to leave in the middle of the night. The other guys on the crew invite you to a barbecue one weekend, and you make an excuse, because getting close to anyone feels dangerous now. At the hardware store, a clerk asks for your ID out of habit, and your whole body goes cold before you remember the fake one in your wallet. You've memorized the fake name so well that some mornings waking up, it takes a second to remember your real one. Level 4. The distance. You call your mother once a month now, always from a different payphone, always keeping it under 2 minutes. Her voice sounds thinner each time, and you tell yourself it's just the connection, not something worse. Mia writes you letters to a P.O. box you rented under your fake name, and reading them is the only part of the week you actually look forward to. In her last letter, she told you your mother has been having trouble breathing, and the doctors want to run more tests. You want to go home so badly it feels physical, a pressure right behind your ribs that never fully lets go. You know that showing up means the end of everything, the end of freedom, maybe the end of ever seeing any of them again outside a visiting room. So you stay away, and you hate yourself a little more with every week that passes. Mia's letters start getting shorter, more careful, like she's protecting you from something she's not ready to say. One letter simply asks if you're ever coming back, and you don't have an answer that doesn't feel like a lie. You start writing replies you never send, torn up pages filling a drawer in your rented room. The distance between you and the people who love you stops feeling like miles and starts feeling like something closer to loss. Late one night, you almost call the house line instead of the payphone, just to hear her voice pick up. You hang up before it rings, hands still shaking, telling yourself it's for their own protection. But some nights, protection just feels like another word for running. You keep every one of Mia's letters in a shoebox under the bed, reading the old ones when a new one doesn't come. On your mother's birthday, you buy a card you can never mail, and you write in it anyway, just to feel like you did something. You imagine her at the kitchen table, wondering if she's set a place for you out of habit, and the thought is almost too much to carry. Some nights you talk to a photo of the two of them, quietly, like they can somehow still hear you from this far away. Level 5. The manhunt. A year in, a local news segment airs a fresh appeal, your photo blown up beside a tip line number that scrolls along the bottom of the screen. Someone in town mentions offhand that you look a little like the guy from that old case, and your stomach drops through the floor. You stop going by the diner altogether, stop making eye contact with anyone who lingers a second too long. A stranger in a truck idles outside your building one evening, and you spend the whole night packed and ready to run again. 2 days later, you leave that town for good, the third place you've had to abandon in under 2 years. Every fresh start now takes less time to feel unsafe than the one before it. You've started noticing things you never used to. Unmarked cars, second glances, a phone call that ends too quickly when you walk into a room. The exhaustion isn't just physical anymore. It's something that sits behind your eyes and never fully clears. In a new city, you take a job washing dishes, keeping your head down, keeping your answers short. A coworker asks one too many questions about your past, and you quit the next day without collecting your final check. You start rehearsing a version of your own life story so many times that you almost believe it yourself. Sleep gets harder, not because of the work, but because your mind won't stop replaying that one night on the pavement. You wonder sometimes if the man's family knows your name, if they think about you the way you think about them. The guilt and the fear have become impossible to separate from each other anymore. You start recognizing your own face in strangers' double takes, in the way a cashier's eyes linger half a second too long. A woman at a bus stop pulls out her phone to take a photo of the street behind you, and you're gone before she even lifts it to her eye. You switch buses twice for no reason other than instinct, watching the same gray sedan you think you saw an hour earlier. By the time you finally sit still again, your hands are shaking so badly you can't hold your coffee steady. You've stopped asking yourself if this is really a life anymore, because you already know the answer, and you're too tired to face it. Level 6. The Wall. Then, one gray morning, a letter from Mia catches up to you weeks late, forwarded through 3 different addresses. Your mother is in the hospital, her lungs finally giving out after years of quietly getting worse. The letter says the doctors aren't sure how much time she has left, and that she keeps asking for you by name. You sit on the edge of a motel bed for an hour, the letter shaking in your hands, unable to move. Every version of your future you've imagined for 2 years collapses into one single impossible choice. You can keep running and maybe never see her again, or you can go back and face everything waiting for you there. For the first time since that night in the parking lot, running doesn't feel like the safer option anymore. You think about the man who died, about his family, about your own family, about the weight you've been carrying alone. You realize that you've spent 2 years surviving, but you haven't actually been living. Not really. Not once. That night you don't sleep at all, sitting by the window, watching headlights pass on the highway outside. You think about all the versions of yourself you tried on, the fake names, the quiet towns, the constant looking over your shoulder. None of it ever felt like a life. It felt like a sentence you were serving before you'd even been convicted of anything. By morning, something in you has settled, quiet and heavy, like a decision that's already been made without asking permission. You pack the one bag you've kept ready for 2 years, for the last time, for a different reason than before. You look at the fake name on the ID in your wallet, and for the first time it feels like a stranger's, not a shield. You think about the moment on the curb 2 years ago, and for the first time you let yourself imagine saying it out loud to someone. You call Mia from the payphone one last time, and instead of hanging up quickly, you stay on the line and tell her what you've decided. She's quiet for a long moment. Then she says she'll meet you there, wherever there turns out to be. You hang up the phone, step out into the cold morning air, and start walking toward your car. Level 7. The Return. You drive through the night, back toward the city you left, back toward everything you've been running from. Somewhere past the county line, you pull over and call a lawyer's office number Mia sent you months ago, just in case. The lawyer meets you at a diner near the courthouse, and for the first time in 2 years, you say out loud exactly what happened that night. 2 days later, with the lawyer beside you, you walk through the front doors of the police station, hands steady, chest tight. You tell them everything, the argument, the shove, the accident, the 2 years of running that followed it. It isn't the ending you imagined when you were 26 and terrified in a parking lot. There are hearings and lawyers, and a judge who listens to every detail before deciding what comes next. But somewhere in the middle of all of it, you get to sit across from your mother again, her hand in yours, her breathing slow but steady. Mia doesn't have to write letters to a P.O. box anymore. She can just call, anytime she wants. You're not free yet, not in the way you used to think about freedom, but for the first time in years you're not running. And something about standing still finally feels like relief. The sentence you receive is real, and you accept it without arguing, because some debts are worth actually paying. What surprises you most is how much lighter you feel, walking into a cell, than you ever did walking free through a stranger's town. You write to Mia every week now, real letters, with your real name signed at the bottom. In one of them, you tell her that running never once made you feel safe, not for a single day. You tell her that walking through those doors, terrified as you were, felt more like freedom than any of the towns you hid in. Your mother keeps every letter in the same shoebox Mia once used for hers, on her nightstand, where she can reach it. The first time she visits, she doesn't mention the sentence, or the hearings, or any of it. She just holds your hand through the glass and tells you she's proud of the man who finally came home. You sit in the visiting room, replaying every choice that led you to this chair, the ones you'd take back and the one, in the end, you're glad you finally made. You think about how much lighter honesty feels than 2 years of running ever did. In another town, hundreds of miles away, a young man argues with someone in a dark parking lot, voice rising, fists clenching. For a second, his hand hesitates in the air, and something in him remembers a story he once heard about a man who ran and a man who finally didn't. He lets his hand fall. He calls for help instead. Somewhere, the cycle finally breaks.